YouTube Ozzico in the Goat House is back with some more free agency signing grades. I got a playlist full of these videos. We grade every signing from free agency. I will put a link to that playlist in the comments there, along with some other important things. Our Twitter, which has live news, rumors, thoughts, predictions, more. Always talking with you guys, so check it out. Again, link down below. Like, subscribe to notifications on because we have full offseason coverage here. Drafts right around the corner. We got all these signing grades, trade prediction videos, mock drafts. We got you covered here. It's pretty quiet at the moment, so a good time to hop on here and record this video. But usually when I record these videos, a bunch of signings happen. So we'll see if that's the trick still here since it's quiet right now, trying to spark something. Here's our Twitter. Link down below. Check it out. Always talking ball here. So let's start with the big one here that was a few days ago. Terron Armstead to the Dolphins, 5 years, $75 million. The max value was like 87.5, so there's some incentives there, but still a fairly good deal when you look per year, even if it hits max value. So this was the big one. This was I guess Davante Adams was the number one free agent. He got franchise tag. So during most of this process, Armstead was the number one free agent, so it was going to be big to whoever landed him. It was pretty much going to be a win no matter what for whoever landed him, unless they paid him something insane. There is somewhat of a downside maybe to this deal, and that would be because the price looks great. When I first saw it, it's like, wow, the Dolphins got Armstead. Well, that wasn't really surprising. We predicted it to happen, but that's huge. They got a left tackle. It's only $15 million per year with incentives. It's still it's less than I thought. I thought he'd be the highest paid possibly the highest paid free agent. Then you start to think about it a little bit. And 5 years is, and would love to see the layout of the contract. Still don't have that, but the 5 years is pretty lengthy because he was hurt last year. I'm not really overly concerned about the injury. The Dolphins spent some time giving him a physical, obviously. That's why they brought him in, so they feel pretty comfortable with it. But that's the thing. He got cheaper than I thought, but then he got probably a year, maybe two, more than what I thought, too. So that's what kind of almost offsets it, where it's not like, it doesn't become still the price range is still less than we thought, but it's not like, wow, what a steal of a deal. It's for sure in the Dolphins' favor in that deal. It's very good for Armstead as well here. But overall, the Dolphins been searching for, let's say left tackle, but I was going to say proven offensive lineman in general. They land the number one guy here. Again, fair deal, pretty good deal here. So I'm going to give them an A. It was going to be a big one no matter what. The 5 years is a little tricky. If he can't stay healthy, that's tough. Remember, Trent Williams was always a guy that just couldn't stay healthy either, and he's panning out right now. Best lineman of football, perhaps. And then, Mike McDaniel kind of got that type of guy here with Terron Armstead for his left tackle spot, which very important, so finally it feels like to have that solved. There's a lot of teams that had been after him. Talked about the Steelers, maybe the Panthers, the Seahawks, the Colts, the Bears, just keep going down the list of teams that could have been interested here. So Dolphins get them. Big offseason for them, to say the least there. Next up, this one actually happened this morning. And we'll circle back to some that happened in the last few days. It's just a random order here with this video. But the Chiefs signed Ronald Jones, 1 year, $5 million. So it kind of felt like he could be going elsewhere. The Chiefs have a couple free agents at the running back position. They still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who they know that he has talent, just got to stay healthy. But looking to get a guy to pair with him. And Ronald Jones, 24 years old, got to feel he still has upside, going and getting more of a role, I guess. It definitely compared to last year. So, yeah, this one's interesting too because it's like, yeah, he's definitely got to have some upside still. It's only a 1 year deal, so is it really an upside deal? I think he play very well for the Chiefs this year. How many carries he's going to get? It's one of those situations, though, I kind of wish the Chiefs would. They're a little hesitant to go get the big-time running back. Is it because they don't want to value the position really at all? Or is it because they want to kind of insist on Edwards-Helaire and kind of just get some competition for him? So it is one of those teams where I kind of wish it's just, you can go big or go home. And by go home, I mean maybe re-sign Darrell Williams to a cheaper deal, or Jet McKinnon, obviously Jarek McKinnon to a cheaper deal. Maybe he looked pretty good for them too. So Yeah, this one's it's kind of, you can kind of look at both sides here. I am excited to see him have more of a role. How will he be in this Chiefs offense? Does kind of feel like a totally different offense in the Bucs. He's kind of been hot and cold. He looked really good 2 years ago. Remember that, for the first half of that season, he looked really good. And $5 million is max. I didn't see the base deal yet. I'm gonna go B plus. Overall, I like it. I think he'll play well for the Chiefs. I'm curious to see how they split up Rojo and Edwards-Helaire. I'm curious to see that. Is this going to be another, maybe he's going to have a Darrell Williams role, then is that worth it then? So a little bit up in the air with some things, but overall I think he'll play pretty well for the Chiefs. Kind of something I'm just, again, intrigued on, to see it a little bit there. So the Chiefs get a B plus for Ronald Jones. How about Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 3-year, $30 million. So they lose Tyreek. Well, they trade Tyreek Hill, and then is MVS actually the replacement? It's just another speedy receiver, so I don't know if he's actually the replacement, but they draft one as well. And they did bring in Juju, which I love that signing here. But I was kind of predicting, $10 million per year, around 10. Doesn't mean if I'm predicting it, doesn't mean I love it though. So I don't know if I love the $10 million per year. I don't know if I hate it though at the same time. But it is a lot, and there's a little bit of risk with that because, he hasn't been fully healthy. There was a moment in his career where it's like, this guy gets open, he's got real speed, but he's got a bad drop problem. I think he cleaned that up a bit, and he has that home run ability, which kind of fits the Chiefs. But there is some risk because he's first time playing away from Aaron Rodgers, and I know Patrick Mahomes arguably maybe better even, but it's a different, obviously. Will his hands hold up? Will he, is he only a deep guy? Will the health hold up? So $10 million per year. It makes sense in this market. That's why I was kind of predicting it, but it does come with a lot of risk. He's got upside, and you got 3 years. You can reach that upside with him, especially playing with Mahomes, playing in this offense. Do they have more plans for him other than just kind of being a deep ball guy for the most part there? Another thing, I'm a little surprised. It's weird. It's a weird one because I'm not really surprised because at the same time of being surprised. But I'm not really surprised mainly because we heard that he's going in for a visit and the Chiefs were really looking into adding a receiver. So that's really not surprising. But looking at the way of it, it looks like they're not valuing receivers. They had Tyreek Hill, and they had him on a pretty somewhat pricey contract, but he's extremely talented, elite player, elite speed, rare type of player. Other than that, the other receivers they're bringing in, just very, very, very low value. They're letting him walk. Then Tyreek Hill wants the money that he deserves. They won't give it to him. They trade him. I mean, they were about ready just to trade him to the Jets for way less than what they even got. So they were just good with just kind of getting rid of him. We don't want to pay him. So the Chiefs, in a way, kind of really devalued the receiver position. And then a guy that comes, again, talented, has some more upside, but comes with some risk, and you go dish out $10 million per year here, 3 years, and this isn't max value. This is actually base value. So that almost seems, I know $10 million is kind of cheap compared to the rest. It's just a little surprising, a little surprising there. And then pretty good draft position, and they still may take a receiver. It's a little surprising in that way. I'm going to still keep it in a pretty good grade range here, but I'm going to go B minus. Again, comes with some risk. How will he fit in this offense away from that Rodgers offense? Maybe a little contradicting, like I said. Like all of a sudden they're going to value receiver, but not really at the highest level, which really helped them in the past. And then Juju, they may not have gotten him if it wasn't for dirt cheap too. Like were they only going to do it for dirt? So it's a little weird. He gets more than Juju too. It's very strange. So we'll see how that works out. Still something they needed. Something that's, MVS going to help him out here. He's going to play pretty well for them, I believe. So, speaking of the Packers, though, they had Jarran speaking of the former Packers, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Speaking of the Packers and the Chiefs, I guess. Just talking about the Chiefs and their player, Jarran Reed, goes to the Packers, and we were just talking about a former Packer. So, Jarran Reed, 1 year, $3.25 million to the Packers. I've been calling for them to get, I think a lot of people have, get a solid interior defensive lineman to pair with Kenny Clark, because they haven't really had that. They've had some solid pass rushers, but get somebody on the actual defensive line to pair with a very good football player in Kenny Clark, and they get somebody pretty solid in Jarran Reed. Earlier years, in Seattle, it looked like he was going to be a very special player. He kind of didn't really keep going with that, live up to that. I think he was suspended at one point, kind of threw him off a little bit, but I still thought played fairly well. And for the Chiefs last year, he's a guy that kind of came up with some impact plays, kind of hit or miss moments for him, but definitely a disruptor. Can get some interior pressure, could stop the run, make an impact play. It's an upgrade from what the Packers had in years. Years. Kenny Clark's kind of at a lot of times been kind of by himself. It's they've had some guys, good depth rotation guys, but in terms of starters, the Lowry and Lancaster, next to Kenny Clark, so finally, and they're decent players, don't get me wrong, but finally trying to get somebody else a little better here. So I like this one. It's a cheap deal. Give me interesting to watch, fun to watch. Finally getting a very good defensive lineman up there with Clark. I keep saying it, but so I'll give the Packers an A on that one. One we weren't really expecting. I think we got used to the Packers just settling with what they had around Clark there on the D line, only really valuing him. But something a little different. The Broncos. Speaking of the Packers, these are all connected somehow. Former Packer right tackle Billy Turner, who they cut. They're pretty desperate for cap space. Signing with the Broncos, 1 year, $5 million, and based off value, this is pretty damn good. This is cheaper than what I thought Billy Turner would get, because there's a lot of teams in need of a tackle out there. Billy Turner, he's solid. He has his moments where he struggles a little bit. I think the Packers have some high standards when it comes to the offensive line over there. And they did miss him at the right tackle position, for most of that. Obviously, that playoff game against the Niners where Dennis Kelly was in and was getting beat up big time in that game. And that was a big reason the Packers couldn't get much offense going. So if they had Turner fully healthy in that spot, then I think, it may be a little bit different of a story. But, yeah, overall, the Broncos needed a right tackle. They have a few guys that kind of can compete for that spot. They signed Tom Compton, who's a right tackle / guard. I like him better at guard. But they have a few guys already in there as well that could kind of fight for that spot. So it's kind of good to look at it like that. Like, we got options. But the thing is, they're kind of just they have a bunch of these guys in there where that takes some cap, even though it's cheap. They're kind of got a lot of space into a competition where the Broncos themselves are not really sure. I don't like that part of it really. But overall, I think, because just go get a guy that you're just confident with and you feel good about, and then you play him at right tackle, and the competition's good. If another guy outplays another guy, then you play the better guy there in training camp practice if they outplay the other guy. But overall, yeah, 1 year, $5 million, get experience, decent right tackle. I got to give the Broncos an A on this one. I think their offensive line's really coming together. That's good for Russell Wilson. It's going to be fun to watch him with the good offensive line because it's been some time. It's been a really long time. Feels like since he had a decent offensive line. I don't know if he ever really had a great one. So it's going to be fun to watch. See if the offensive line should be pretty damn good, I think, in Denver. So we'll see. The next up, this one happened this morning. Kyzier White, not as big maybe as of a name as the other guys we just talked about, but Kyzier White, linebacker of the Chargers, going to the Eagles, 1 year, $5 million. This is a very interesting one as well. Kind of tough to grade because we're kind of all over the board here. What I like about this connection between White and the Eagles ran a lot of zone coverage. They need a linebacker. I guess there's multiple things. They need a linebacker, ran a lot of zone coverage. White is a pretty good zone coverage linebacker. Really shouldn't say pretty good. That's kind of to be determined. Pretty solid. He's getting there, but he definitely fits the zone coverage scheme better. So seems like a pretty good fit. That's kind of the positive there. I don't know if there's really a negative, but a positive with White himself is that he feels like an upside guy. Still got a lot of potential. Remember, he was like a safety out of West Virginia. Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? Those guys are usually pretty raw. So it took him a little bit of time. He kind of got going last year a little bit. Still could work on the run support, but he got going, and you kind of feel he has upside. So that's kind of the great thing when you sign these guys. But a 1 year deal, though, that's like, I don't know if we really can talk about upside. Maybe for this year we can, but when he signs a 1 year deal. So if he plays well for them, they're going to try to do this again. The price probably went up a lot. So it probably, this would have been a lot better if they got him for a 2 or 3 year deal for less than $5 million per year, which this is max value. So it's just making it a 2 or 3 year deal probably would have made it better, actually. And I know, what if he didn't work out with them? Then maybe you would regret the 2-3 year deal. But the main reason you're signing this guy, to me, is for his upside. So that's kind of it's not really a negative here, but that's kind of the downside. Another thing is, Eagles were another team where, I bring this up a lot for some teams, but it's kind of go big or go home with the linebacker position. You just need to for sure get better. You don't need to. We'll get a guy that's kind of similar to the guys we have in terms of where their talent level is, or maybe they're slightly better. And they got 3 first-round picks in the draft, so I guess they could still do that. So I'm kind of leaning towards a B here, because the main reason to like, and a B is good. They added a linebacker they needed to. We got a young player that's pretty that should fit, pretty solid, getting better, obviously. But the main reason to love a Kyzier White signing is because of his upside. Can we reach that upside in 1 year? So that's kind of the question there with that one. And then some more signings, some that are pretty old. Was kind of looking for, not pretty old, but some a little old. Kind of looking for the contract details. Finally got out. So trying to keep track of all these, but a lot of solid ones here. Actually, no B's on this page. I just realized a bunch of A's and some C's. The Bucs got William Gholston back to get on 1 year, 4.5. That's pretty good. They've had a very stout defensive line, stout run defense, so it's good to keep that guy around there. Because I don't know if Ndamukong Suh's coming back, so Gholston, Vita Vea, they might have to find another one there, a D tackle. The Commanders got Cornelius, so I gave that one an A. I think I mentioned that. Commanders signed Cornelius Lucas, 2 year, $8.2 million. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Kind of a swing tackle that played. Him and Cosme played kind of like 50% snaps, around the same last year. So kind of where's the direction here? It's kind of like a signing. It's an interesting one because it's 2 years at the same time. It's like, is he going to be playing as much? Are we going to see a decrease in snaps? Not really because of him, but we're going to try to play Cosme out there with Leno. Is that what we're going to pair? We're going to use Lucas as a swing tackle. So there's some questions there. Or is he going to keep playing the amount he did? Overall, so it's 4.1 per year. That's a pretty good deal. If there's a shot, maybe he's playing. I don't think so. But there's a shot maybe he's playing very little, like a big decrease in snaps. Then it kind of feels like even though it's small, somewhat small cap. It's not small, I guess we'll say. It kind of feels like a waste of cap. For 2 years, but maybe it's kind of a trade. Teams are bringing in that swing tackle, bringing in another tackle as well. So even if he is a backup, eventually, you still got some value. That's why I kept it in the A range. We only knock it down to that A minus. There's some small maybes, questions, mysteries in here. Patriots got Malcolm Butler back, a very cheap deal. Was surprised it was 2 years, but I don't really think that's a problem. Well, yeah, he kind of was retiring for a second there, so you wish it was 1 year. Now that I'm thinking about it, but cheaper than I thought. That I thought he would get 4.5 per year. That's pretty damn cheap for a corner. We know he fits the Patriots. We know he can run. He can play in some man coverage, so we'll give it an A. Broncos signed Kwan Williams from the 49ers, 2 year, $5.2 million. Originally saw it was like $7 or so million, but this is the base deal, 5.2. There's not a load of good slot corners, really. It's kind of a shortage. I think Kwan Williams is a pretty good slot corner. Having a guy like Bryce Callahan who played slot and outside, I think he's better, does have injury concern. But they're spending bigger money in more of the important positions. And you get a fairly good one here for a cheap cost. So I like that for the Broncos. Raiders got Vernon Butler, very cheap deal. They need some defensive linemen. This one is so cheap. And he's a solid player, nothing special, solid player, that I had to keep it an A. But, there is maybe, you kind of wait, because that defensive line is very important in Patrick Graham's scheme, and it kind of feels like I'm talking about the interior defensive line. We know they got the edge rushers, but and it kind of feels like they're going for like the cheaper guys, and they're gonna need a stud in there. They're gonna need a stud in there for sure. So maybe that's the downside of it. They're kind of going cheap because they spent so much elsewhere, and then they don't have 2 first-round picks. We're gonna need to find them. And I just realized it says Raider. The Raiders signed Vernon Butler. They're gonna need to find themselves a big-time guy in there, I think. So that's kind of the downside. The more I talk, I could change my grade as I'm talking slightly. So you just see the positives and negatives, really. Bill signed Daquon Jones. This happened a few days ago, more than a few days ago. Maybe I was going to wait for the contract details, and it kind of slipped by me. I'm surprised by this one. By the $14 million of 2 years for Daquon Jones. I'm very surprised by that. I would have guessed it would have been a very cheap deal if the Bills were to get him. It feels like they're, which is a good thing too, because the Bills, when their defense did struggle, besides the Chiefs game, it kind of struggled in every category in that game in the playoffs. But besides that, it was a top defense in football. When it did struggle here and there, it was kind of run D. So it feels like the Bills are just making it a point. Let's go, be a stout run stopping defense because you need to be to maybe win a Super Bowl. So I love that. And they had Daquon Jones and they had Tim Settle. I love the Tim Settle signing. So that's kind of the good thing. Maybe going a little too far into that because you're paying Daquon Jones, who's going to be 31 this year on a 2-year deal, $7 million per year, who's just strictly a nose tackle that kind of stops the run. And I like Tim Settle as a nose tackle, so maybe their early downs are looking to use both. Tim Settle signing is way better in this one. I was a little surprised by this. I thought this could have been a 1-year, very cheap deal. And I think right now he's better than a guy like Vernon Butler, who went to the Raiders, who was on the Bills. But is it a guy you give a 2-year, $14 million to? So that was a little surprising. The Bears got Trevor Siemian, 2-year, $4 million. First glance, this is a really good one because it's, he got some good playing time last year. Siemian actually looked pretty decent. He had some bad moments, but I think this is a pretty good contract for a guy. At the end of the day, he's had his struggles, but he's got some good experience. He's a good backup, for $2 million per year. I think that's good. I tacked a minus on there because I do have kind of a, I don't like because they have Justin Fields as their starting quarterback. I want to kind of get a guy in there, which is kind of hard to do, but get a guy in there that could mentor him a little better, more of his style, but that's easier said than done. I'm not a big fan of where you kind of get a totally different style quarterback as your backup, so that's the only downside, but the plan is for Fields to be the starter the whole time. So it's not like you have to worry about shifting things like in a panic, in a hurry, so, we'll give Siemian A-. Vikings got their veteran quarterback back. I don't really love this one. It's very cheap. 1 year, $1.27 million. Well, it's not the veterans minimum though. The veterans minimum is $1.12. So I know when we're talking NFL money, that's nothing in terms of the difference. But it feels like something to me because you think you could have got him on the vets minimum there. But yeah, was this necessary? This new staff hasn't seen him yet. You have Mond sitting in there behind a very durable, very healthy Kirk Cousins. It just didn't really feel 100% necessary. It's not one we can give a totally terrible grade to because it's very cheap. It's a 1-year deal, but I don't really love it. And the Cardinals signed the former Viking, Nick Vigil, which I think he's a decent linebacker to have for $1.77 million. For sure. I just don't love the fit. I'm trying to wonder, is this supposed to be a Jordan Hicks replacement? It's just not really the same style of linebacker. Just felt like he's just for sure a 4-3 linebacker. I don't think the Cardinals are switching under Vance Joseph, who's a pretty decent defensive coordinator. Runs at 3-4. I don't really see them switching. They don't really have the players to do that. And Vigil's not really a guy that makes you do that either. I don't love the fit. So, but overall, I think he's a solid linebacker that gives you, when you have him in, he gives you some good reps, and it's a pretty cheap deal. So, interesting one. Eagles got Zach Pascal, 1 year, 1.5. It's another one of those ones where it's like, all right, the receivers kind of got a bunch of these receivers that are, are they going to figure it out? They're decent. They needed a big time guy. So it's kind of, I thought, another one of those situations where it's like kind of go big or go home. But overall, Pascal's got a good experience. He's a decent receiver. He's a very good blocking receiver. Very good. And the Eagles run the ball a lot. So overall, 1 year, 1.5. I like it. Overall, I like it. I just wish they'd go a little bigger, but and they still can with the draft. So I'll give that an A-. 49ers bring Kerry Hyder back. We saw him with the Niners. He looked pretty damn good. It's a very cheap deal. Kind of another one of those where, maybe if we can find a stud instead of, just another one of those kind of rotation guys to pair with Nick Bosa, stud, then, they'd be in big-time business. So I gave him an A-. Panthers signed Matt Ioannidis. Commanders kind of surprisingly cut him. They signed him quite a few days ago, but I didn't really get the contract details. It's a 1 year, $5.9 million. with a bunch of void years on it, actually. But they needed a guy that kind of could play that 3 technique role, kind of a pass rushing defensive tackle to pair with Derek Brown, who's kind of your run stopping, can get some interior pressure as well, but it's going to play on the more on the inside than Ioannidis. So I like the fit, kind of what they needed there. 1 year, 5.9 is it's a pretty good deal for him, pretty good value. So I definitely like that one. So a lot of these are just fairly solid. I mean, you see them; they're kind of cheap deals, good value. Some guys with some upside. So there's really no reason to. Not a whole lot of reasons, to give some of these any worse of a grade there. So a lot of solid ones. And really overall this year, these signings are pretty fair contracts. Like it's nothing ridiculous, nothing out there. Which the cap went up quite a bit. So maybe a little surprising that there aren't teams making out there signings and getting bad grades. It's just less than normal this year, I've kind of noticed. So, I mean, there really is some good free agents still out there. We have a recent videos talking about those best available, some sleeper available. Some of those guys got signed. So there will be some more big-time signings. We'll see if we're kind of in that mode now, who won free agency, who's the most improved, and a lot of draft content. So that's kind of where we're gearing towards now after most of free agency is wrapped up. We'll keep you up to date with everything on our Twitter, so check it out. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. That'd be much appreciated. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.